Good evening, students. I hope you are doing well, and I hope you enjoyed the trip to Flume yesterday, and I hope you found all the insights very interesting. So we are going to continue with our consumer behavior series in Marketing 3. If you remember very well, we spoke about consumer decision-making processes. So we are focusing on the individual consumer, like what is it that you go through when you are about to use a product, when you are about to consume a product. We discussed 5 steps of consumer decision-making processes. First of all, you need to recognize the problem. You need to feel that you need a solution to a problem. So, for example, when you are thirsty, that's the problem that you have recognized that you are thirsty. So you have to satisfy the thirst or the hunger. So once you do that, you go to the second step of information search. So once you realize that you are thirsty, you then start looking for a solution, like what is it that is going to fulfill this thirst? Is water going to be enough? What about a soft drink? Or what about beer? Whatever that you think can quench your thirst. Then once you've compared, once you've come across different informations about the solution that you have, you then evaluate the alternatives. Like you have been disposed to a lot of options. There's beer, there's water, there's soft drink, there's tea. Like there's a lot of information about whatever solution that you can have to your thirst. So you then evaluate, weigh in all those options. Once you've weighed in those options, you then make a choice. Once you've made a choice, you then have what you call post-consumption evaluation. Then you ask yourself whether after drinking that tea that you've decided to drink, or after having that soft drink, are you now satisfied? So that's the post evaluation, consumption, post-consumption evaluation. So those are the things that we looked at last week, and the focus was on the individual consumer. This week, we are going to look at household decision-making. So my apologies, I'd like to apologize in advance that some of the text on the screen are going to be a bit clumsy because I converted this file to a PDF so that I can be able to share it on the screen. Remember, slides are uploaded every week on Core Campus. So since yesterday we were at Flume, I would like to advise our full-time Marketing 3 students to listen to go and have a look at these slides and listen to everything that I'm going to discuss here. So today we are going to be looking at household decision making. So many families have got democracies whereby there's no individual consumer who makes decision, you know. Some families, decisions can be made by the father, you know, looking at the traditional or the patriarchal or even the biblical assumption that the father is the head of the family. So it means that most of the decisions that will be taken can be taken by the father. In some families, decisions are taken by the mother because she's the one who manages the home. She's the one who knows what is needed and what is not needed. So some families, decisions can, like everyone is consulted, you know, regarding a certain problem that has been recognized. So we can still apply the 5 steps of consumer decision making. But here is just that a household has got many members depending on the size of the family. So you should be able to explain household decision making. You should be able to identify the 8 distinct roles in the household decision making process. And you must be able to identify and explain the 5 stages of the household life cycle. And finally, you should be able to understand the household expenditure patterns. This lesson is very pertinent, especially considering the current economic climate, load shedding happening, people losing their jobs, the rand getting weaker against the dollar, and everything that is happening out there. There are so many decisions that are made at household level. So let us look at some of the conceptual framework that we can apply to household decision making. Household research attempts to describe, understand, and predict how household members interact and influence one another in terms of household buying, usage, and disposal. If we're in class, I was going to ask you guys, like, who gets involved in what decision when it comes to buying, usage, and disposal of products, because I believe this differs by family. But there's a framework, there are principles that we can apply to the same patterns that we can find across households. So there are 8 distinct roles in the household decision-making process. So we've got what we call influencers. So these will always have a strong voice when it comes to the problem that has been recognized. For example, you can have family members who are advocating that we need to get a car as a family. Or you can have family members who can advocate saying that we are tired of having pap. It's time we need to eat rice. So these are very strong at voicing their opinions and making suggestions. Then after that, we would have gatekeepers. So gatekeepers are the ones who would filter whatever information that is coming from the influencer. So, for example, you can have a gatekeeper who is a mother who can actually say that, no, you need to continue eating pap instead of rice because pap has got so many carbohydrates and stuff like that, you know. And we've come across gatekeepers in many cases in families whereby you know that if you go to your father or if you go to your mother or even if you go to your uncle, if it's an extended family, you know that whatever influence that you have, whatever that you want is going to stop there. So it's going to be filtered there. So gatekeepers can either allow influence to proceed or they can actually stop it right there. Then we've got deciders. So these are the ones who make the decisions. Once you've voiced your opinion, then your opinion passes through the gatekeeping stage. Then now a decision is going to be made whether to proceed or not. So you can actually see that sometimes the influencer, the gatekeeper, the decider, the buyer, the creator, the user, and all those can play a role of one person or can be many people playing different roles there. So a decider is actually the one who say that we are going to get this, Then the buyer, as it says, is the one who is actually going to fork out money. So sometimes it doesn't necessarily the decider being the buyer. So you can have, for example, a mother who doesn't have money but can make decisions at household level. So she's going to decide this is what is going to happen. Then the provider in a typical family, being a father, is then going to buy that because the money is going to come out of his pocket. And it can be vice versa nowadays. We've got hybrid families whereby women are also having more financial power. Children can even have financial power. You can be living in a family whereby kids are the ones who are working and parents are not working. So all these can determine the role that the breadwinner is providing. Then we've got creators. So these creators are the one who actually convert the actual product into something, For example, if we are talking about groceries, so the deciders will decide what kind of grocery is going to be bought and the buyer is going to fork out the money. Then a sister is going to create a meal out of those groceries. So we have creators, then of course we have users, Users are the ones who actually consume that product, and we have maintainers, and then we have got those who throw away, Sometimes families have got duty rosters whereby there's one person who's known for taking out the garbage. So that person will be a disposer. And sometimes it can be different people, Maintaining relates to many things, For example, if you buy a car, the one person who has good knowledge of maintaining that car. Or if you buy hair clippers, the one person who is good at maintaining those hair clippers for the family. So here, it depends, whatever that you get as a household product, be it groceries, be it a family car, whatever that you get, you can always apply those 8 distinct roles. Please don't forget to ask me questions in the WhatsApp group or when we meet in class, or to discuss and engage further when it comes to these things. I know that you are members of different households, and I'd like to know your insights on how decisions are made and where you fit in on those 8 distinct roles. Then we've got role behavior. For a household to function as an interrelated unit, one or more household members must carry out various tasks. Different people may therefore carry out different tasks in the buying process. As I've said, you can have someone who is a decider and a payer at the same time, or even a gatekeeper. You can have someone who is an influencer and a disposer at the same time, You are the one who actually came up with an idea that you must buy eggs. So you influence the family to buy eggs. Once those eggs have been eaten, you are the same person who's going to throw away the shells of those eggs. So one person can play multiple roles. Then we've got husband and wife decision making. Remember, not all household has got husband and wife. As I said, we live in hybrid societies where, family no longer have that structure of having a mother and a father, or a wife and a husband, We've got families that are headed by single parents. You've got a single mother. You've got a single father. We've got families that are run by clans, You've got a granny who is a mother, then their uncles or their aunties, a sort of an extended family, The textbook would give us that Western form of a family, but in many African cultures, we see different roles within families. Some would focus only on the nuclear family, some would focus on the extended family, whereby the uncles or the cousins have got a role to play in the decision making. So please bear with me when we are discussing this husband and wife decision making. We are also aware that not all families have got husbands, not all families have got wives. Marketers are attentive to the relative amount of influence that a husband and a wife have when it comes to household consumer choices. In some cases, I've heard people saying that I would rather ask my mother because she has got the deciding power, or I'd rather ask my father because he won't say no. So all these, as marketers also need to know who exert influence, who has got the buying power, who is the gatekeeper. We need to know all these informations when coming up with a marketing strategy. How spouses influence the decision-making process. So with some, those who are more liberal or democratic, there will be more involvement, Then some but can only make unilateral decisions. They don't consult the spouse. And then, yes, you've got the influence of employment, who uses power in terms of bringing in money. This matters a lot, as it is sometimes also linked with gender-based violence, you know, the other gender thinking that I've got financial power, then I can starve you when it comes to the items that are needed for the house, and then it turns violent and stuff like that. Then of course we've got gender gap, which can also highlight things like inequality. In this scenario, gender gap is not only the physical power or the physical dominance between a husband and a wife. Sometimes dominance can also come in form of a wife making decisions without involving a husband, just saying that as long as you are going to get a meal, you must not worry about what I'm going to get, um, for the house. So all these do matter, and gender gap can also be affected even amongst the children. Like maybe a girl child has got more power, more influence when it comes to kitchen stuff than a boy child, vice versa. Then there are 5 basic stages of the traditional household consumer decision making process. So there's bachelorhood, there's honeymooner, there's parenthood, there's post-parenthood, there's dissolution. I think this makes sense. You know, post-parenthood, of course, it's when you become grandparents and you're no longer parents to your children who are actually parents themselves. So you actually become grandparents. So I don't know to you many who are bachelors how you make decisions. We are going to discuss that in class. Then the contemporary, the one that is modern, the modern household life cycle. So you need to note that the South African market is diverse to the extent that it poses a major challenge for marketers to segment it. So as I said, family dynamics are completely different in South Africa. We have got this emerging occurrence of baby mamas and baby daddies. You know, where do they fit in when it comes to household decision making? You know, we've got this thing of co-parenting, you know, whereby 2 adults are not living together, but they are co-parenting. Where does it fit in? So all these we need to consider, and you can go through table 13.1 on page 272, which highlights the 8 life stage groups. Also have a look at the page 273 and 274. So you need to understand the diverse nature of South African families, because these also contribute to the marketing decisions that one would make. Household expenditure patterns. So marketers frequently use household information for estimating patterns of consumer spending on main expenditure items. You know, you realize that whether there's only one person working within the household or there are 2 persons or even more working, we've got what we call a household income. So we need to understand how that household income is spent, is broken down. Who yields power? Who is the influencer? Who is the gatekeeper? Who is the decider? Who is the buyer? Who is the maintainer? Who is the user? Who is the creator? Who is the disposer? So all those patterns, we need to identify them when coming up with when developing a marketing strategy, or even coming up with a messaging related to specific brands. So these are the stuff that we would discuss when looking at households. There are activities on question 2 and 3 on page 278. When we meet in class, I'm going to ask about these activities. But in the meantime, that's lesson 35 for you guys. I hope you understood everything that I was discussing. It's always easier when there is someone in class. It's always easier when we are engaging and digesting and deconstructing these further, because we all belong to households. I'd love to understand what kind of a household do you belong to. Is it a family where there's a father and a mother, or were you raised by single parents and stuff like that? Because having these insights, shed a picture of how diverse the South African market is, and how brands can capitalize on these patterns. So that's it for lesson 35. And I hope you understood everything. If there are any questions, don't hesitate to contact me on the provided platforms. Now let's go and have a look at lesson 36.